that. Steve Langford came in today and explained the reason he didn't come in yesterday, which was because he would have been angry at Howard. And apparently his daughters are, his family, is hands off when it comes
And I'll give Steve a little bit of a hard time. Steve knows as a reporter and a super fan of the show that anger is the way you want somebody on the show.
So is he just deflecting?
No, I think he really believes in what he did yesterday. I think he felt that he might come in and say something that he regretted. But, he also knows that you want somebody's raw emotion, not a day later with a chance to calm down.
How do you think he handled that conversation today?
I think he stood his ground, but I still don't buy into what he's saying, but I think he does, and he stood his ground.
Ronnie apparently will add some banter to his yelling and screaming when he goes on stage next time with Shuley. We wish Ronnie luck. George was more than willing to give Benjy a kiss when that came up, and that stemmed out of Benjy spending a little too much time out in the halls with the former governor of Minnesota, Jesse Ventura. And there's been a lot of talk in the back about this. Was Benjy way out of line, number one, or was he doing what I guess anybody else would do? And number two, has he learned his lesson, or he's just going to keep doing the same thing over and over again?
I got to go back and watch the tape because I'm getting conflicting reports. The guys on TV were telling me, like Doug Goodstein told me, it was really funny. Jesse Ventura seemed to really want to talk to Benjy and was enjoying himself. Then Jason and a couple of the other guys came to me and said Jesse was just being really nice. It was clear that he wanted to leave. So I got to figure that's probably more of what was going on. I mean, there are some people who like to talk and just won't ever leave. One of my favorite things ever, we had David Lee Roth on the show once, and we said goodbye to him. And I was in the studio dealing with Howard. When I came back, he was sitting in my office, and he and John were sitting at Howard's desk. And David was explaining to John how Van Halen with him is way better than the Sammy version. And I could tell, David wanted to be there. David was going to convert everybody one by one, and he had no place else to be. But, Jesse clearly had other places to go. And, but see, Benjy's going to come in a second, so let's try to have this conversation quick. Benjy thought, we're doing a more behind the scenes oriented TV show for Howard TV. So Benjy's feeling was, hey, I will do this for the TV show. That I get. When he said that, he asked Greg if it was okay. Greg's our cameraman, so Greg interviews the people when they come out, and then he was done, and Benjy goes, okay, if I talk to him, and Greg goes, I don't care.
But I think Benjy asked him as if, Greg, are you done?
Right.
So now not for permission.
But it came across on the air. He said, I asked Greg if it was okay.
Right.
And it came across as if that's who he asked.
And I was in the green room afterwards with Tim and Ronnie, and I asked them what happened, and Tim's like, he went on, and he was asking really weird stuff, and it was completely inappropriate for him to do that.
There was something about passports, and then Benjy just walked in now, and something about sticking guns up your ass. And Benjy can tell us more what it was about, but why don't you, since Benjy just walked in, why don't you decide where you'd like to start the conversation with Benjy?
It's a simple question. Have you learned your lesson, or will you continue to talk to guests out in the hallway?
I wouldn't. I don't like the first part of that question, so I'm not going to answer it because that's so condescending. But the second part, will I talk to guests out in the hallway? With appropriate permission, I will.
So it sounds like yes to the first part of the question that you disagree with.
Have I learned my lesson?
Yeah.
Well,
that's sort of an expression.
Well, I honestly thought I did today have appropriate permission, but I will be more careful about where appropriate permission comes from.
So you think Greg saying okay gave you appropriate permission?
It wasn't just Greg. I've talked to Doug about it before. I thought it's okay. Like when in the hall, I thought the TV guys are generally in control, and if we ask, and it's not something I typically do, but if we ask, like, hey. Yeah, sometimes I say hi if I'm not talking about celebrity guests. I'm not talking about today was a celebrity guest. If someone is the saddest listener, they know you. Oh, can we take a picture with you? That kind of thing. Great. I'm friendly. Say hi.
Well, that's different.
No, I get it. But I'm saying with a celebrity guest, I always before I do some sort of interaction with them, if more than just walking by them, excuse me, that kind of thing. I've always asked permission, and I thought it was appropriate to ask the TV guys for that, and I've talked to them about that in the past.
Well, we've got conflicting stories here, and Ronnie, if you can, you should come down here, because Ronnie was telling me how this is something you do all the time, and I asked him for specific examples, and Ronnie couldn't come up with one, but he says that you're constantly in the green room and constantly talking to the guests, whoever they may be, after they leave, and I guess you wait until the Howard 100 News and TV do their thing, right?
Yeah, the other thing I was going to say, and you probably, again, I feel like I'm on the show saying this way too often. You probably should ask me, because TV doesn't book the guests or have anything to do with the guests. TV's just shooting the guests.
They said do not listen to what you said.
Yeah. No, but really, like, in other words, if you think it may be inappropriate to bother a guest, why would you ask Doug, who has absolutely nothing to do with the guest?
I thought in that kind of situation where it's like they're interviewing, they're just, deciding what they're interacting, covering it. In that kind of situation, that's where I would ask. In the past, I would have asked TV.
So why is Ronnie telling me that you do this all the time? Is that just not true?
I think Ronnie has seen me say hello to people, and he likes to. It's hard to answer something like that without specifics or without like this much, then that kind of thing. I can't address it. Have I said hi to guests before? Yes, I have.
Now, Gary, especially after what happened with Langford, but I don't know if that's direct, but at least it relates to this. Why is anybody talking to the guests in the first place? I mean, is it okay for Benjy to do what he's saying if TV says it's okay? Or should the guests leave the studio and be able to just go about their business?
Yeah, I'm going to defend Benjy a little bit here. You shouldn't talk to the guests at all. How he said that Benjy didn't go in there for his personal gain to have a conversation with Jesse Ventura. Benjy thought he was doing a bit for the TV show. And I can understand for Benjy where he might sometimes get mixed signals, meaning why is it funny and okay to chase and I know it's not up here while they're up here as a guest, but why is it funny and okay to chase Tracy Morgan around the set of his show, and then you put it on TV here and we all laugh, and then when he's trying to do this is my perception, Benjy was, sort of working a bit. I think he was trying to do a bit that would be useful for the TV show, and so why, when he tries to do that, is it not good?
Were you working a bit, or did you have questions for the governor?
I thought it was an interesting question that I thought would be interesting for the TV to cover. So I wasn't trying to do I wasn't trying to do a character or anything like that.
Right, but I think you thought you were there for the TV show or for your own personal gain?
Well, you could always say yeah, do I enjoy being part of things? So yeah, it's personal gain in that sense. But no, I thought this would be like a good little moment.
But it wasn't like you had a question for the governor that you didn't think anybody at TV would care about that you needed to know the answer to.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I got out of it. I thought Benjy was, to some small degree, sticking it up for TV.
And you seem to, I forgot what I was going to ask. You seem to make it more of an issue with Howard, not over what the subject matter was, but rather the way he was talking to you today.
Well, yeah, that's correct.
And why? I mean, why did you take that tack? I know you feel that way, but rarely in the middle of an argument do you say, "Hey, don't talk to me that way" with Howard.
I didn't like the way he was, addressing the issue.
No, I get it, but why? You picked today to fight back on that. I bet you there's a lot of times in the past you don't like the way he talks to you. What was about today that made you sort of step up?
I don't know that maybe I felt it was especially egregious. Egregious.
And that only incensed Howard even more.
For a second, but it turned.
Well, Gary, did you think Howard was talking to Benjy disrespectfully when Benjy said, "Hey, don't talk to me that way"? Because Howard said, "Look, I'm trying to tell you in a nice way, and now you're pissing me off," and it kind of built from there.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's the way. I think Benjy has this sort of complex, which may not be without merit, that he gets sort of painted a certain way that isn't always true. So immediately, without Benjy being able to explain, I'm trying to talk from what I think he's seeing. Without being able to explain, you're out there acting like a jerk, you're out there doing stupid shit. Benjy was trying to explain, and then when he can't get his point across, he feels like he's just being, like nobody cares what he has to say.
Did you feel more secure with George sitting there?
Yeah. Well, it's like I can't think of the word, like a tempering kind of thing. Like it makes any situation like a little happier. You know
well, and listen, if George cracks a joke or tries to lighten up the mood, it's always interesting because there's a buffer between you and Howard looking right at each other and yelling at each other.
Yeah.
And what happened with that kiss?
I thought it would be so. Part of me was like, ugh, what a great thing to like make out with this guy. I'm not just thinking of George as I like him as being on the show, but I'm as this icon. Like to make out with him would be so funny to make out with him, to have a picture of that. But I also, and I don't have any sexual attraction to him. So it wasn't for, but I didn't want the stigma of making out with a guy.
But
it would have been so funny. So part of me, maybe I should have done it more. I don't know.
You went for it, and he pulled away quickly. And I guess my guess is you expected him to kiss you with lips, and if he would have kissed you, you would have kissed him on the lips for much longer.
Yeah, that's what I thought we were. Hey, George.
He didn't clue you in that wasn't what was happening, right, Benj?
Yeah, the only other guy that's ever done that when I used to do that, like on like interviews and stuff, like Jeffrey Ross, the comedian. Like I went in for a kiss and he starts kissing me back. That's not the bit.